You make sure you do then, or mark my words, you won't know what's hit you.
I will, Father.
You better, my son.
The boys slept in the stable that night, and next day the four, with Timmy, planned to set out for a day's ride. Captain Johnson said he would let Julian ride his own sturdy cob, and Dick took a chestnut horse. The girls had the horses they usually rode. Henry hung about looking very mournful. The boys felt quite uncomfortable.
We really ought to tell her to come along. It seems jolly mean to leave her behind.
Yes, I know. I agree with you. Anne, come here.
Yes?
Can't you suggest to George that we take Henry too? She's longing to come, you know.
Yes, she is. I feel awful about it. But George will be mad if we ask Henry. They really do get on each other's nerves.
But this is silly. George will have to learn sense. I like Henry. She's boastful, and I don't believe half the tales she tells, but she's good fun. There she is now. Hey, Henry!
Coming!
We're all going off for the day. Would you like to come with us?
Would I like to? You bet! But does George know?
I'll soon tell her.
Julian went in search of George. She was helping Mrs. Johnson to get saddlebags ready full of food. But when Julian said that Henry was coming too, George muttered something peculiar and went out of the room, her face scarlet. Later, William came into the room with a message that George said she had a headache and didn't think she would go on the ride after all. Julian looked startled and upset, but Mrs. Johnson had things to say on the matter.
Now listen to me, Julian. Just leave George to her imaginary headache. Don't go fussing around her and begging her to come and saying you won't have Henry. Just believe quite firmly in her headache and go off by yourselves. It's the quickest way to make George see sense. Believe me.
Yes, I think you're right.
I know I am.
Soon all four were on their horses and were walking over the yard to the gate. George heard the clippity-clop of the hooves and peeped out of the window. They were going after all. She hadn't thought they would really go without her. She was horrified.
Oh, what an ass I am, Timmy. A great big idiot. Why did I behave like that? Now Henrietta will be with them all day and will be as nice as possible, just to show me up. You don't care how I behave, do you, Timmy? No? Yes?
Mrs. Johnson says if your headache is bad, you're to get into bed. But if it's better, come down and help with the gypsy's horse.
I'll come down. Tell Mrs. Johnson I'll go to the stable at once.
George went down with Timmy into the yard. She wondered how far the others had gone. She couldn't see them in the distance. Would they have a good day together with that horrid Henry? Ugh. The others were almost a mile away, cantering easily. What fun! A whole day before them on Mystery Moor.
I think it's a jolly good name, Mystery Moor.
I don't think it looks at all mysterious.
Well, it's got a sort of quietness and broodiness, as if something big happened in the past.
Quiet and broody? It sounds like one of the farmyard hens sitting on her eggs. It might be a bit frightening at night, but it's just an ordinary stretch of countryside in the daytime.
What's that moving over there? It's caravans. Of course, they were setting out today, weren't they?
Where can they be going? What's over in that direction?
They'll come to the coast if they keep on the way they're going. Let's ride over and have a look at them, shall we?
Yes, good idea. The caravans make quite a splash of colour, don't they? Red, blue and yellow.
Look, there's Sniffer's father. What a nasty piece of work he is.
Good morning. Nice day.
Where are you going? To the coast?
It's nothing to do with you.
Surly folk, aren't they? I wonder how they manage about food on this moor. Suppose they take it all with them.
I'll ask them. How do you manage about food and water?
We got food there in that caravan. As for water, we know where the springs are.
Are you camping on the moor for a long time?
It's nothing to do with you. Now clear off and leave us alone.
Come on, Henry. They don't like us asking questions.
They simply don't want to be friendly. That's their trouble. Never mind. I'm enjoying myself.
The others were enjoying their day too. But they were not quite so happy as Henry. They kept wondering about George. They missed Timmy too. He should be trotting beside them, enjoying the day as well. They lost sight of the caravans after a time. Julian kept a track of the way they went, half afraid of being lost. They had a magnificent lunch about 12:30, with no end of sandwiches, great slices of cherry cake and ginger beer. Later they found a round pool with a little spring of clear fresh water and then decided to make their way home. Julian led the way, his horse picking its own path over the heather. The others followed. Dick stopped after a while.
Are you sure we're right, Ju? I don't somehow feel that we are. The moor is different here, rather sandy and not so much gorse.
Yes, it does look a bit different. We seem to be going in the right direction. Let's go a bit more to the west. If only there was something to guide us. But this moor hasn't a thing that stands out anywhere.
What's this then?
What?
Look, it seems like rails or something. Very old and rusty.
Yes, you're right. But what were rails laid down here for?
I can't think. I only saw them by chance. They're so overgrown.
They must lead somewhere. Perhaps there's a quarry on the moor.
That's it. It's very sandy here. Maybe there is a quarry. Well, that way behind us goes right out onto the moor. So this way must lead back to some town or village.
Yes, you're right. In which case, if we follow the lines along, we'll get back to civilization sooner or later.
The lines ran steadily over the moor, sometimes very overgrown. And in about half an hour they led down to Milling Green. Then, as the rails came to a sudden end, the four of them rode into a small cart road and back to the stables. George had had quite an interesting day. Sniffer arrived asking after the horse again, which George told him might be ready by the next day. His father and the rest of the gypsies having gone off onto the moor, Sniffer showed George around his caravan, and then showed her some of the special signs that gypsies use to leave messages for other gypsies. But by the time evening came, George was feeling very lonely. When the others arrived back, she stood there not knowing whether to frown or to smile. The others made up her mind for her.
Hello, George. We did miss you.
How's your head? I hope it's better.
Come and help stable the horses, George. Tell us what you've been doing.
Did you really miss me? I missed you too. Sniffer came over for his horse. Oh, there's the supper bell. Are you hungry?
You bet. How is Sniffer's horse then?
I'll tell you at supper. Do you want any help, Henry?
No thanks, George.
It was a very jolly supper that evening. Captain Johnson was very interested to hear about the old railway line they had found.
I never knew there was anything like that on the moors. Of course, we've only been here about 15 years, so we don't know a great deal of the local history. You want to go and ask old Ben, the blacksmith, about that. He's lived here all his life.
Well, we've got to take some of the horses to be shod tomorrow. We could ask him then.
We saw the caravans too, George, when we'd got pretty far out on the moor. Goodness knows where they were heading.
I've no idea what the attraction is for the gypsies either. It just beats me.
I'd like to go after them and see what they're doing.
All right, let's.
But how? We don't know where they've gone.
Well, Sniffer's going to join them tomorrow, or as soon as Clip his horse is all right for walking. And he's got to follow the patrons left on the way by the others.
The what?
Patrons. They're special signs that gypsies leave to pass on messages. I could ask him to leave plenty of patrons for us to follow.
Well, it might be fun to see if we could read the right road, just as easily as gypsies do.
So next day, when Sniffer came for Clip, George asked if he would lay patrons that they could follow as a game. He agreed, and George went to fetch Clip. The rest seemed to have